I still remember the morning of my 25th birthday. The air was crisp, the sun glimmered through my window, and I had woken up feeling strangely grateful. Grateful that after years of hard work, struggle, and quiet tears, I had finally built something of my own. But that feeling didn't last long. By evening, I would lose everything I thought I had left. Not money, not possessions, but family. I was born into a wealthy Nigerian family, the Adeyemis. My father, Chief Adeyemi, was a respected businessman in Lagos. My mother, elegant and poised, was the type of woman who believed that money could fix anything, even love. We lived in a mansion where silence echoed louder than affection. My younger brother, Jide, was their golden boy, the one who could do no wrong. I was the quiet one. The one who painted instead of attending galas, who chose a career in design instead of banking, and who never fit into the polished, pretentious mold of my parents' world. When I graduated from university, I told my father I wanted to start my own clothing line, a business that would blend African heritage with modern fashion. He laughed, genuinely amused. Business? You? You can't even manage your emotions, Teni, he said, sipping his coffee. You need to get a real job. Something respectable. My mother nodded in agreement. We didn't send you to school to sew clothes. You should be in a bank or marry someone responsible. That conversation broke something inside me. I packed my things that night, moved into a small apartment in Surulere, and started from scratch. I worked 3 jobs, tailoring during the day, waitressing at night, and sketching designs whenever I could steal a few hours of rest. Years passed. And though my parents ignored my calls, my brand, AO Wear, grew. One viral design, a bold Ankara-inspired jacket worn by a celebrity, changed everything. Suddenly, boutiques wanted my pieces, influencers tagged me, and investors reached out. But despite my success, I never stopped hoping that one day my parents would be proud of me. When I received my father's message inviting me home for my 25th birthday, I felt an emotion I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Maybe, I thought, this was his way of making peace. Maybe he was ready to see me as something more than a disappointment. I spent days preparing the perfect outfit, one of my own designs. A flowing silk jumpsuit with hand-stitched patterns inspired by Yoruba art. It was my proudest work yet, a symbol of everything I'd become. As I drove into the family compound, the same tall black gates opened like they had when I was a child. But this time, I wasn't returning as the timid daughter who used to hide behind the curtains during parties. I was coming back as a woman who had built herself from dust. The house smelled of jasmine and money. Everything was polished. The chandeliers, the marble floors, the laughter of guests dressed in gold and glitter. My mother stood by the entrance, smiling that perfect society smile. "Teni," she said, her tone neutral. "You came." "Of course, Mama," I replied, trying to sound cheerful. "It's been too long." She scanned my outfit, her eyes pausing at my handmade jewelry. "Still doing that sewing thing?" "Yes," I said, forcing a smile. "It's my career now." Her lips tightened. We'll talk about that later." Dinner was served in the grand hall. My father sat at the head of the table, surrounded by family friends and business partners. My brother, Jide, laughed loudly at something one of them said, his gold wristwatch catching the light. When I entered, everyone turned. My father raised his glass. "Ah, our daughter is finally here," he announced. "The stubborn one who thinks she can survive without us." The guests chuckled. My chest tightened, but I smiled anyway. "Happy birthday, my dear," he said, his voice filled with the kind of warmth that hides a sting. "Now that you're 25, maybe it's time to stop pretending and come home. We've decided to cut off the little allowance we've been giving you. It's time to grow up." I froze. The entire room erupted in laughter. Allowance? He hadn't given me a kobo in 5 years. "Daddy," I said quietly, "you haven't been sending me money." He leaned back, smirking. "So what do you live on then?" "Eh?" More laughter. Even my mother smiled thinly. The humiliation burned like acid. But I swallowed it. When dinner ended, I slipped outside into the cool night air. My hands trembled, my chest heavy with rage and shame. That was when Jide followed me. He leaned against the balcony rail, smirking. You really shouldn't have come, Teni. They only invited you to make themselves feel better. I turned to him. Why are you like this? He shrugged. Because I'm real. You think you're better than us, but you're still that rejected little girl. You'll come crawling back soon. Something inside me snapped. You're wrong, I said coldly. I built everything I have. You'd be surprised to know how much you depend on me. He laughed. Depend on you? Don't flatter yourself. But the truth he didn't know, was about to change everything. The following week, a storm hit our family. It started when my father called his accountant, furious about a delayed payment for one of his major contracts. The accountant apologized and said something that made my father's blood run cold. Sir, he said, we've been sending those payments through AOWare Logistics Ltd as you instructed. My father frowned. Yes. And? The accountant hesitated. Sir, that company is registered under Miss Teni Adeyemi. Silence. My father thought it was a mistake. But when he checked the official records, the truth hit him harder than he could bear. AOWare wasn't just my brand, it had become the main fashion supplier for 3 of his companies. Through my logistics wing, AOWare Logistics, I had unknowingly become his vendor. And yes, the one signing his suppliers' checks. The same daughter he publicly mocked was the one keeping part of his empire running. 2 days later, he showed up at my office. The guards almost didn't let him in. But when I saw him through the glass doors, the proud man suddenly smaller, older, humbler. I told them to let him through. He stepped into my office, looking around at the minimalist decor, the soft hum of sewing machines from the adjoining room, the photographs of models wearing my designs. Teni, he began, voice unsteady, we need to talk. I gestured for him to sit. About what? He hesitated. About the contracts. I didn't realize you were involved. I leaned forward. You didn't realize a lot of things, Daddy. He sighed deeply. I was wrong about you. Your mother and we didn't believe in you. We thought you were wasting your life. I stared at him, searching his face for sincerity. Do you know how it feels to be cut off by your own parents? To build something from nothing while they laugh at you. His eyes softened. I know now. And I'm sorry. But apologies don't erase scars. That night, my mother called. Her tone was surprisingly gentle. Teni, your father told me everything. We're proud of you. I paused. Proud enough to finally see me as your daughter? She was silent. We made mistakes. Can we start over? I didn't answer. I just looked around at my studio, at the sketches pinned to the wall, at the young interns I was mentoring, at the empire I had built without their help. 4 years, I had chased their approval. But standing there, surrounded by my own success, I realized I didn't need it anymore. Weeks later, at a family gathering, my father introduced me differently. This, he said proudly, is my daughter, the CEO of AOWare. She's doing incredible things. Everyone clapped. I smiled politely, but inside, I felt hollow. Because I knew something they didn't. My parents weren't celebrating me because they loved me. They were celebrating me because they needed me. That night, I drove home alone, the city lights blurring through my tears. I thought about all the birthdays I had spent waiting for their calls. I thought about the little girl who once begged for their love. And then, I thought about the woman I had become, strong, successful, and free. When I reached home, I poured myself a glass of wine, looked out over the city, and whispered to myself, sometimes, the people who cut you off are the ones who were never your roots to begin with. 3 months after that unforgettable birthday, the Adeyemi household was no longer the same. My father's empire, once the pride of our community, was trembling under the weight of poor management and debt. For years, he had hidden the cracks behind lavish parties and expensive cars. But now, creditors were circling like vultures. The only contracts still running smoothly were the ones managed through my company. And that, ironically, was his last lifeline. He began calling more often, each time with a new tone. Less arrogance, more desperation. Teni, my dear, he'd say, voice trembling. Could you Help with a small issue? Just a delay in payment, you understand? I helped at first. Not for him, but for the workers who depended on those projects. But soon, I noticed something. Every time I bailed him out, he went back to his old ways, pretending nothing had changed. It was my mother who came next, this time in person. She arrived at my office wearing her signature gold gelly and carrying a Tupperware of jollof rice, as though nostalgia could fix years of distance. "My daughter," she said softly, placing the food on my desk. "I miss you. We all do." I studied her face, still beautiful, but lined with worry. "What do you really want, Mama?" She hesitated. "Your father is not well. The stress is too much. He feels you're punishing him." I sighed. "I'm not punishing him. I'm just living my life." Her eyes glistened. "But you could make things easier for us. We're family." That word, family, felt heavy on my chest. Where was that family when I cried alone in my tiny apartment? When I skipped meals to keep my dream alive? "Mama," I said quietly, "you and Daddy taught me that love is conditional. You cut me off when I didn't meet your expectations. Now you only reach out because you need me. That's not family." She looked away, ashamed. For a moment, I almost softened. But then I remembered, forgiveness doesn't mean returning to the fire that burned you. A week later, I got a call from Jide. His voice was shaky. "Teni, Daddy collapsed," he said. "He's in the hospital." I froze. Despite everything, he was still my father. I rushed to the hospital, heart pounding. When I saw him lying there, weak and frail, all the anger melted into something else. Grief. He opened his eyes slowly. "Teni," he whispered, "you're here." I nodded, holding his hand. "I'm here, Daddy." A tear rolled down his cheek. I was wrong. I thought money made me powerful. But the truth is, love does. And I failed at that. Those words broke me. For the first time in years, we sat in silence, not as father and daughter divided by pride, but as two people learning what forgiveness truly meant. Over the next few weeks, I visited him often. He began to open up, apologizing not with grand gestures, but with quiet sincerity. My mother, too, started to change. Slowly learning to see me for who I was, not who she wanted me to be. But deep inside, I knew, rebuilding love after betrayal isn't easy. It's not about going back. It's about moving forward with boundaries, truth, and respect. When my father was finally discharged, he hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for not cutting me off, like I once did to you." I smiled faintly. Sometimes, the best revenge is showing them what love should have looked like. 6 months passed after my father's recovery, and everything seemed calmer. The Adeyemi family no longer sparkled with the same arrogance it once had. The mansion was quieter, the extravagant parties gone. My parents had downsized, a decision my father called strategic, but we all knew it was necessity. Still, he was changing. He spent more time reading, less time talking about power. My mother started volunteering at a local women's center. And for the first time in my life, they both began asking about me. Not my business, not my money, me. But trust, once broken, heals slowly. I visited them every Sunday, bringing food, laughter, and sometimes silence. It was during one of those visits that my father called me into his study. The same room where, years ago, he told me I'd never make it. He gestured to a seat. "Teni, I've made a decision," he said. "I'm retiring from the company. I want you to take over the family businesses." I blinked in surprise. "What?" "But, Daddy, I have my own company." "I know," he interrupted. "But I've seen what you can do. You've built something from nothing. I trust you to lead." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. The girl who once begged for his approval was gone. But the woman sitting before him, she no longer needed it. I smiled softly. "Thank you, Daddy. But I don't want to run your empire. I'm building mine." He looked disappointed, then nodded slowly. "I understand. Maybe this is what growth looks like. Letting go." He leaned back, his eyes filled with quiet pride. "You taught me that real success isn't about control. It's about creating something that outlives pride. Later that night, as I was leaving, my mother walked me to the gate. The same gate where, years ago, she had watched me leave with nothing but a suitcase. She touched my arm gently. "Teni, do you hate us?" I paused, then shook my head. "No, Mama. I don't. I just learned that love without respect is like a house without a foundation. Beautiful, but it won't stand." Her eyes glistened with tears. "You're wiser than we ever were." I smiled faintly. I had to be. We hugged. Not perfectly, not tightly, but sincerely. Weeks later, my father's company finally folded. The debts were too deep, the mismanagement too long ignored. The man who once commanded boardrooms now sat in a quiet living room with a book in his hand. But he seemed peaceful. Meanwhile, AOWare had expanded across Africa. My name was now recognized in magazines that once mocked local designers. And yet, I never bragged. Success had lost its glitter. Now it simply meant freedom. One evening, as I sat in my studio sketching, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my father. "Happy birthday, my daughter. I may not have much to give, but I pray every day that I become the kind of parent you deserved." Tears blurred my vision. It wasn't money. It wasn't power. It was honesty, something I'd waited a lifetime for. I typed back, "You already have, Daddy." By finally seeing me. That night, I closed my laptop, looked at the stars outside my window, and whispered the truth I'd learned through years of pain and growth. Sometimes, the people who cut you off were never meant to hold your roots. They were meant to test them. And just like that, I realized something profound. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without letting it break you. True power isn't found in wealth or approval. It's found in the courage to stand alone, to rise after rejection, and to love yourself enough to forgive without surrendering your worth.